This is a story from someone who wishes to stay anonymous. I read this story and spent some time locating this person to try and obtain an interview. After promising several times I would not tell who he was, he allowed me to interview him. This is a brief rundown of his story. The interview will follow. I will try to cut most details out and get to the main story. It was 1988. I usually would be asleep by 8 p.m. nightly. I had to be at work by 5:30 a.m. every morning, so I made sure to get my sleep. Anyway, one night I was awoken by a bunch of dogs barking loudly. I was very confused when I woke up because I wasn't in my bed. I was actually in the middle of my street walking. I found out the dogs were barking at me. At this time I realized that I had no control of myself. All I could move were my eyes. The next thing I remember was I was walking to this wooded bike trail area near my home. As I crossed a little bridge I knelt down on one knee. With two hands on my bent knee I peeked through some trees and bushes and saw a craft of some type. It was ball-shaped, no lights, and landed under these huge power lines. I never saw the craft from the outside fly. As I looked at the craft, an opening opened up and two smaller beings than me came out of the craft. The next thing I remember was that I was boarding the craft. As I walked onto the craft, the two beings followed me in the craft. The craft was kind of cramped and dark. It was dark, but you could see like a neon kind of darkness. I then bent down and asked the being where we are going. They answered me and said they are taking me behind the moon. I then asked why. They said they couldn't be detected on Earth's radar from there. I said okay, then we took off. I looked out of some kind of window type thing and saw us leaving the Earth. We passed the moon, then made a U-turn type of turn back. This took less than 10 seconds. For some reason I wasn't scared at all. I actually acted like I knew them. The next thing I recall was the only time I was really scared. I woke up again, this time naked in a funnel-shaped pool filled with a greenish-black gel-type liquid. The pool had to be 20 yards wide all around. And pretty deep. The pool was made of some kind of shiny metal. With the gel it made the surface very slippery and you would slip under the gel if you tried to get out. I then realized something very odd at that time. I wasn't alone. There were at least 15 other humans with me. All of them screaming and panicking. This is what scared me. I didn't know what they were screaming about. I thought they knew something I didn't, so I got scared. Some were under the gel moving around, I could see. Most were trying to escape. One man kept climbing halfway out. The closer he got to the top he would get hit by some sort of beam, then he'd slid back into the pool. I thought this guy was insane. If he did get out, where would he go? I thought. I didn't see who was telling me, but they were telling me not to be scared. They told me I would be fine and that I could breathe the gel. They said I could eat it and digest it. I couldn't drown in it. We could live in the gel. It also recycled human waste back into the gel. I believed some of the humans were in the pool for years by the way they were acting. I figured a way to be under the gel and still breathe air. That way they wouldn't hit me with the beam and make me slide under. I blacked out after that. The next things I remember are some pretty vivid memories. I must let you know that I am deathly frightened of frogs. I know it sounds crazy, but it's my one phobia. It's their skin. Back to the story. I was rudely awakened by a being armpit high holding my hand, taking me somewhere. I remember the touch of their hands. It woke me up from whatever I was under. I tugged away and started to threaten them. I clenched my fist like I was going to fight. I said get away from me, and if they touched me again I was going to hit them. He told me if I would do that I would change the world, as we know it. I knew if I hit them in the head my fist would go right through them. I didn't like the feel of their skin and I thought I sure wouldn't want its brains all over me. So I was kind of stuck in defending myself or making a huge nasty mess all over me. That's when I realized that I was communicating to them without my mouth. I knew what they were thinking and they knew what I was thinking. It made things difficult for me at first. That's when the smaller beings brought over this taller being, a little taller than me. As the taller being approached me, he told the smaller being that this is the prophet. I looked at his face for maybe half a second. His face grossed me out, so I never looked at him again. If I looked at him again, then he'd know how I felt about his appearance. I didn't want to offend him because I like this one. He made me feel comfortable. He explained that they wanted to do some medical examinations on me, and if I would cooperate, I made a deal with him. If they didn't touch me, hurt me or scare me, then I would do it. He promised, then I allowed them to do what they wanted. He also said he would answer all my questions that asked. He walked me around as we talked. I looked at the ground the entire time so not to look at him. The next thing I remember was the medical examination. First thing that I remember was coming out of a blackout lying on a table. I was not scared whatsoever. I trusted them. And by being able to read their minds, I know they weren't lying to me. As I remember, they took some skin from my right arm. It was like the thinnest layer possible. Unviewable to my eyes, but all they needed. Next they took semen from me. I didn't understand this. Again, I won't go into too much details simply because this story would be about 900 pages long. I asked about this procedure later. The last thing they did to me was the strangest of all. They took my right eye out of my head. I actually saw the back of my eyeball and a cord or veins connected to it. I instantly asked about this. Next they put a babe-like metal ball in my eye socket, about the size of a broken piece of rice. I asked, "What's that for?" They said so they can monitor me from space. I thought it was so they could see everything that I can see, like a video camera or something. Then they put my eye back in, then that was that? My next memories were the taller being talking, and this was the best part, because he answered my questions and showed me things in my head. I don't know the exact order of my questions, but I did ask away. I must inform you that they communicated to me like an adult would talk to a 5-year-old child. With simple words, stuff like that. I thought it was funny. Anyway, the first question was about my semen. Why? He told me so they can make baby humans in space. I simply said, "Oh." But then as I asked him questions, he put visions in my head and showed me in an instant how they do it. As we were walking and talking about the humans in space, he walked into this doorway that you can't even see until you look in it. Just as we were talking about humans in space, these two kids about 13 to 15 years old, one male one female, turned to look at us. Both human. Full-blooded perfect human beings. They were both sitting down facing away from us. They turned around, looked in my eyes. He sort of introduced us, I guess. Then they turned around and continued to do what they were doing. Believe it or not, they were either controlling, driving or operating the craft or building we're in. They were in control of operating something. I was tripping of this because they knew what they were doing and just little kids. They totally trusted them. Crazy stuff. And being that you can read minds in this situation, I knew the kids weren't scared or uncomfortable. They were programmed to master their job. There is much more to this topic also, but that will scratch the surface of it. As we left, I noticed he was taking me somewhere else. This was kind of confusing to me also. This time it's like the room just appeared. We were just instantly in it. I think it's their doorways. They are unexplainable. Next thing I see is a dead cow hanging, I believe head up but down. Nothing to my eyes was holding it up. I was baffled. I know cows can weigh tons, but it was just hanging. Next thing they did was dip it into some kind of gel in a box-shaped pool just big enough for the cow to fit in. Strangely enough, the gel didn't overflow when they put the cow in. The pool was filled up. Next they lifted the cow out and it was cut, dead, and I was starting to get scared. I thought I was next. But then he showed me why they do this. It all related to the humans in space. He said, "What do humans eat as a child or infant?" I said, "Milk." He said, "Exactly. What do adult humans eat?" I said, "Hamburgers, steaks and food." Again he said, "Exactly." Then he put a vision again in my head and explained it all. They can't just take Earth cows in space. They do just like they told me. He said we make our own cows in space. Germ-free, no fleas, no illnesses, pure cows. Just like the space humans, perfect specimens. Like I said, I have much more information on that topic also. Then I asked about monitoring me behind my eye. They said humans do it all the time. He explained like this. How does a tiger explain to itself when it hears a helicopter coming out of the skies in the jungle? A big metal load, scary object. They all of a sudden they feel a pain in their hip and lose all control of everything except their eyes. Then creatures come out of the object and start doing things to it. Like tagging its ear. Like even taking teeth. They even take semen to preserve the species from extinction sometimes. Basically scaring the crap out of the tiger for it's so good in a way. He said, so why is it cruel for them to do it but not for humans? After reading this amazing story, I conducted this interview. Depiction of alien. Interview. I will refer to myself as Mike and the person telling the story as Bo. Mike, I have heard a lot of abduction stories in the past. I was under the understanding they somehow erased your memory. Why can you remember so much? Bo, in the beginning I did not remember a lot. In fact, very little. I had some medical issues and had to have surgery. They gave me anesthesia. After the surgery I became more aware. I started remembering things in vivid detail about my abduction. It is almost like it turned part of my mind back on. Mike, when did this event occur? Bo, in 1988 I awoke to dogs barking. When I opened my eyes I was outside my house being escorted by 3 smaller beings to a round ball-shaped craft sitting under a heavy power line. Mike, can you describe this craft in more detail? Bo, I saw it was round, some type of orb. It had no lights on it whatsoever. When the door opened and I was led into the craft I had to duck. I am only 5'4". I saw no windows. I estimate there was enough room for 13-15 people in there. Mike, what did these beings look like? Bo, they were very short. I am 5'4" and they came to about the height of my armpit. I noticed big eyes, small mouth. Mike, how did they communicate with you? Bo, at first it was talking normal. It then turned to somehow mental. I would be thinking of things and then they would answer me by putting visions and answers in my head. Mike, were these little guys what people call grays? Bo, I am not really sure. I found them very appalling, so I keep looking down so I would not have to look directly at them. Mike, how overall did they treat you? Bo, the little ones were very rude and I would even say obnoxious things. I did not like them at all. Mike, what happened when you entered the craft? Bo, I was asking, where are you taking me? Am I ever coming back? Telepathically they told me to relax. We were going to what I knew as the moon. I would be allowed to come home. Mike, did you in fact go to the moon? Can you remember anything about the flight? Bo, yes, the orb I was in did something. When it took off I was pulled forward. This was really weird to me. Anything I have been in that left fast, launched me backwards. This orb I was pulled forward. 15 seconds after I felt this I was told we were on the moon. Mike, then what happened? Bo, the next thing I remember I came to, I was naked in a pool filled with a greenish gel and 14 or 15 other humans. Some were moving under the gel, a woman was screaming and crying for help. Another man was trying to crawl out of the pool. It was very slippery. He would get about halfway out and a blue-colored beam came out and kept knocking him back into the pool. Mike, can you describe this pool to me? Bo, yes. Can you imagine the shape of a drill head? You drill into something just to get the hole started so the edges are rounded. Mike, yes. Bo, that is the shape. Like it was built with a giant drill. Mike, can you explain the gel you were in? Their purpose for putting you in there? Bo, I was thinking to myself, why am I here? What are they going to do to me? Trying not to freak out. They put into my mind the gel was harmless. I was told if I went under I could breathe the gel and even eat it. If I had to defecate and the gel after eating it was okay, it would come out as it went in. Seeing people moving around under the gel, I believed them. Mike, did you go under and breathe the gel? Bo, no, I refused to go under. To your last question, I believe the gel was a way to decontaminate us. Mike, then what happened? Bo, 3 of the smaller ones who took me to the orb came in to escort me to a room. I did not like these guys at all. They kept touching me and I could not stand their touch. Mike, what did it feel like when they would touch you? Bo, it wasn't warm like a human touch, but it was not cold. It was like touching a fish with little prickly eyes on it. They kept touching me, walking me through this hall. I was starting to have thoughts of hitting one of them. Mike, couldn't they read those thoughts? Bo, yes, I am sure they did, because they must have called this really big guy who walked up to us. He asked me to relax and said he would help me through this and answer my questions. He then walked me into a room. Mike, can you explain the layout of the place you were in? Perhaps how it was lit? Bo, no, it was dark. I knew it must be large. There were lights, but nothing like I have ever seen. They were like black lights, but nothing glowed like it does in a black light. Mike, what did the tall guy look like? Bo, he looked very human but hatefully ugly. I did not want to offend him, so I continued to look at the ground when we spoke. I did not want to offend him. I had a very strong feeling he was trying to help me and he was not pushy or rude like the little guys. Mike, so what was in the room they took you into? Bo, it looked from what I could see to be Dr. S' room. The big guy said to me, they wanted to put something into me for tracking reasons. He asked if I would cooperate. I said, as long as you don't hurt me. He said, I will be with you, they will not harm you in any way. I trusted him. He led me to a chair and had me sit down in it. Mike, please continue. Bo, well, the little guys looked at me and asked me to turn my head to the right just a little bit. I do not know how they did it, but with my right eye I could see my other eyeball. I watched them put a very small shiny object, about the size of a half grain of rice, into the back of my eyeball. Within less than a minute, they were done and my full vision was restored. Mike, wow, this is amazing. Bo, why do you think I don't like to publicize this stuff? People will think I am full of it. But Mike, as sure as I sit here, I am telling you the God's honest truth. Mike, before we continue, would you answer a question for me? Bo, yes. Mike, if your name is not released, would you be willing to take a polygraph or any other truth agent to verify what you are telling us? Bo, absolutely, without hesitation. Mike, thank you. So what happened next? Bo, the big alien, who I may add was human, but god-awful ugly, walked me into some type of control room. What I found amazing was the people running this room turned out to be 13-15-year-old humans. I know because they looked right at me and smiled. They were perfect. I was thinking, what do these guys eat? How do they live up here? As I was leaving the room with my escort, we came to a room and went in. I saw a cow hanging head up. I could not see anything holding it in place. He showed me in my head how they actually make the cows as they need them. I asked him why. He replied, what do babies eat? Milk, of course. What do adults eat? Meat. Correct. He said by them cloning the food needed for humans, it was pure. No diseases or imperfections. Mike, so what happened next? Bo, we stood around and he showed me thing of what was and what was in our near future. They have been around longer than we have, helping us all along the way, including the Egyptians. He explained they cannot live on Earth because they age differently here than we do. Mike, did they help the Mayans as well? Bo, no, they did get help, but not from them. But they showed me Atlantis. It was awesome. They had everything. They abused the technology given to them. Thus it was their own doing. They erased themselves. The Egyptians, they helped. There are traces of them left behind in the ruins of Egypt. I asked the big guy why the back of the moon. He said to me through my mind, "It is the only place in our solar system that they cannot be detected by humans. We fly by and swing into the back." He assured me by the rate we are doing things, by the year 2015 the whole world will have no doubt they are here. We will first come across them on the moon. Then soon after, we will look up into the sky and it will be full of their ships, thousands of them, leaving no doubt that they are real. The world will clean itself again by eliminating all life from her. They are to repopulate us after this happens, like they have done so many times before. They will save the human race. Remember, they are us 1,000,000 years from now. After this I found myself back in my house with 5 minutes to get to work.